For the student of history of English literature, the story generally begins with Beowulf or Widsith, and of course with Anglo Saxon English, with the note that the tribes that invaded land of Britain and settled there over the time, and the language they produced became the Old English. This probably seems the most legit way to start the history of English literature, but it raises quite a few questions in the mind of a curious reader as well, as to what exactly was there before the arrivals of the outsider. Or what made the ground open for the invaders? Or how come the invaders got part of mighty Roman Empire? So, hello and welcome to Literoseious. In this video, I aim at answering such questions as briefly as possible. Roman Empire was so huge that it was impossible to administer it from a single center. Hence, in the year 286 AD, it was divided into two. The Eastern Roman Empire, which comprised Balkans, Greece, Palestine and Egypt, and the Western Roman Empire, which comprised Italy, Spain, Gaul and Britain. But our journey actually starts quarter to the century later with Gratian, the son of Roman Emperor Valentinian I. Gratian was raised to the rank of Augustus in the year 367 AD and took over the Western government 8 years later in 375 at the age of 26 upon the death of his father. The early days of his rule were rather glorious. To put it in the words of Gibbons, the fame of Gratian before he had accomplished the 20th year of his age was equal to that of the most celebrated princes. But soon he fell victim to the activities of luxury and abandoning his royal duty to his preceptors, started spending his time to satisfy his appetite for the imperial pleasure of hunting, which resulted in him losing popularity in the eyes of his subject. Neglection of duty is the element that boosts the growth of a usurper, gives birth to the rebellion and more often than not implants the seeds of the greater ambitions in the mind of the one whose name is proclaimed by the public, perhaps due to one's dutiful resume. In case of Gratian, the name was Magnus Maximus, the Roman general in the West. In 383, Maximus attacked on Gratian with significant number of armies, so much so that it is considered as an emigration of a noticeable part of Britain. Perhaps it can be thought of as the earliest opening of the door for the Anglo Saxon establishment. In a 5-day skirmishing, Gratian was defeated. He tried fleeing away but ultimately got killed by Maximus' magistrate. Theodosius I, the last of the Roman emperor to rule the Roman Empire in its entirety, was at the time Emperor of the East. The eastern frontiers were at the constant struggle with tribal invaders, which kept Theodosius' military occupied. Thus, he thought a negotiation with Maximus a better idea than fighting against him, and recognized Maximus, the Emperor of the West, along with the 12-year-old brother of Gratian, Valentinian II. Valentinian's mother Justina was associated with Arianism, a theological idea that believed in Jesus as the Son of God, but not in the Holy Trinity of Catholicism, the dogmatic belief that explains the three different persons of the God, the Son and the Holy Ghost as one, due to which Justina was labeled heretic. This label naturally passed on from her to her son, of course not without the Arian belief. It was this belief that made Valentinian's Catholic subject dislike him, in which Magnus Maximus found an opportunity. He had been planning to fulfill his empirical ambitions secretly, and in the year 387, the day arrived when he marched towards Italy and took over the throne. Valentinian with his mother Justina and sister Galla fled away. Theodosius provided them with a refuge in Thessalonica. Theodosius believed that Justina's Arian heresy caused her son's misfortune, but nevertheless he helped the cause of Valentinian. Well, according to some historians, it was Valentinian's sister Galla who, by her graceful beauty, won the heart of the mighty emperor, which ultimately helped the cause of her brother. Justina proposed Theodosius a marriage with Galla, but in return, Theodosius had to restore Valentinian's throne, to which of course Theodosius agreed. The might that Maximus had shown while invading Gratian, the vigor with which he overthrew Valentinian and his high ambition that elevated him from being the Roman general to the emperor of the West, all fell down when his troop bowed down to the conqueror Theodosius. Maximus descended from the top of the Alps to the plain of Italy to escape, but to his misfortune, there is no escape for the man who is entrapped behind the bars of gluttony. Hence, not much to the surprise, he was caught and then executed in 388 AD. His head was separated from his body, to be precise, and his son was ordered to be killed, whose name was Victor ironically. The order was soon executed. Internal mutiny gives rise to the external folly, and in the case of fall of Roman Empire in the land of Britain, Maximus had sowed the seed of it. After the victory, Theodosius took over the rule of the West and Valentinian played no active part. Actually, it was Theodosius' trusted general Arbogast who was assigned for the duties in the West and guardian to the young Valentinian, since his mother had already died then. Though theoretically Arbogast was acting under Valentinian, practically he was answerable to no one but Theodosius. Soon he became one of the most powerful men in the West, and soon his ward realized that he was being sidetracked, but soon was actually so late that Arbogast reached at the peak where Valentinian's order was not audible to him. Therefore, when Valentinian ordered to dismiss Arbogast, the former remained ignored. In the year 392, Valentinian was found hanged at the blooming age of 20, perhaps due to suicide. Arbogast chose Eugenius to rule over the empire, and the ambassadors were sent to Theodosius to communicate the death of Valentinian and for recognition of Eugenius as the emperor of the West. Theodosius knew that the second conquest of the West may prove difficult. Thus, he sent the ambassadors back with a rather ambiguous answer. But as mighty a man as Theodosius cannot remain silent for a long time. It took him about 2 years to prepare an answer, but when he prepared one, it annihilated the world of Arbogast and his puppet Eugenius. Theodosius utilized the Gothic force led by Alaric and attacked the fortification of Arbogast, in which around 10,000 of those soldiers died. This strategy served dual purpose for Theodosius. One, of course, was to disturb the fortification of Usurper, but other was his secret desire to reduce the number of Goths. And the both purposes were fulfilled. Theodosius' soldier killed Eugenius, and Arbogast, who had realized that there was no escape for him, turned his very sword against him and put it through his heart. Soon after this victory, Theodosius died. But the dying father had already passed the spectre of the West to his younger son Honorius, and of the East to his elder son Arcadius, and the responsibility of guardianship of his sons on the shoulder of his able general Stilicho. There is actually a doubt whether Theodosius gave the charge of Arcadius' guardianship to Stilicho. Though Stilicho troubled little to maintain the order in the West, he failed to gain a good control over the East. Rufinus, prefect of the East and trusted by Theodosius, virtually became the man of authority in the East after the death of Theodosius. He did not entertain the idea of Stilicho in the power of East, which caused a great deal of trouble to Stilicho. In a short period after Theodosius' death, the Goths prepared themselves for independent nation. About the year 395, Alaric, who had then become the king of Visigoths and who had survived battle against Arbogast, invaded Greece, perhaps with the pain of 10,000 soldiers in his heart, and plundered the city. Though Stilicho stopped him and was in the position to kill the invader, at the end he had to let the invader go because of the order of Arcadius, since he commanded the eastern troops and who himself was working under Rufinus. In 397, Alaric invaded for the second time. This time again Stilicho surrounded him, but again he had to let him go, or rather his own luxury let Alaric go. Arcadius perhaps understood that a certain sort of recognition to the man who helped his father may be helpful. Thus, disregarding the opinions of many, Arcadius promoted Alaric to the rank of Master General of the Eastern Elysium. Soon administrative reshuffling deprived Alaric of this recognition, which may have ignited in him a spirit to attack on the Roman Empire once again. About 401 AD, Alaric prepared an attack on Milan. But again his old friend Stilicho defeated him, but on his part Alaric managed to escape. A truce was made with Alaric and he went back to Elysium. While Alaric maintained peace under the treaty, another invader by the name of Radagasius became a threat to the empire in the late 405. Unlike Alaric, who was Arian and hence believed in Christianity and respected the Christian God, Radagasius, whose origin and early life is a mystery, was pagan and lacked the military tactics that Alaric possessed. His motives, to quote Gibbons, were to reduce the city into a heap of stones and ashes and to sacrifice the most illustrious of the Roman senators on the altars of those gods who were appeased by human blood. But Radagasius could not stand against the might of Stilicho and was at last captured and executed in 406 AD. Some men of his army joined Alaric's force. Now, before moving forward, it is better to take a glance at Britain, the land of our primary concern, and in what manner all the episodes discussed affected it. When Magnus Maximus launched an attack, his army obviously consisted of soldiers guarding Britons, and when he lost, his men either got killed in the battle or remained in the mainland of Italy, thus substituting troops in the defense of Britain. The same happened when Arbogast and Eugenius fought against Theodosius and lost, and during all these times of civil war, Britain remained mostly abhorred from the empire, but not from the constant foreign invaders. Another incident to point out here is that the coin minting in Britain was stopped after the death of Maximus in 388 AD, which made them dependent on the supply of the coin from Milan. But the phase that the war took in Italy in 402 AD, that is Alaric's attack on Milan, made the process of coin minting to be transferred to Ravenna, which resulted in Britain losing its coin import and ultimately in army men remaining unpaid. It created a discontent so high that about the year 406 it gave birth to the rebellion, and a soldier by the name of Constantine III was selected as the leader. The only thing great about this leader was that his name matched the name of Constantine the Great. During the time Constantine raised to the power, the Vandals, the Sioux and the Alans had invaded Gaul. Constantine, without wasting time, set out for the Gaul, taking with him the troops from Britain, and got the hold of the Gaul against the invaders, and then moved to Spain. Honorius did not like Constantine and thus began not so common domestic quarrel, in which kinsmen of Honorius had participated and of course were executed, and Constantine the usurper remained unmoved. Coming back to Alaric, he did maintain peace for a few years, but a man of his sort cannot remain inactive for a long time. Stilicho's energy was drained considerably in the fight against Radagasius and Constantine, in which Alaric found an opportunity, and somewhere in 407 he invaded Italy once again, but this time, rather simply attacking the city, he made an offer and demanded a sum of 4,000 pounds of gold, to which Stilicho agreed. After introducing so many names, one more name to be introduced in the story of the formation of the land of Britain is the name of Olympius, a minister of the Western Roman Empire. Yet another praiseworthy name did unpraiseworthy deed. He made Honorius believe Stilicho was a traitor and planned to have his son sit upon the throne. To the misfortune of Stilicho, his recent failure with Constantine and payment to Alaric served as evidence to Honorius, which the emperor accepted with no investigation, and ordered the execution of Stilicho, the man who was saving the empire from invaders since the death of Theodosius and had envisioned the union of the eastern and western part of the empire, was ordered to be killed. Stilicho followed the order without resistance and courageously gave his head for beheading and died in 408, soon followed by his son. While Stilicho was dead, Constantine the usurper and Alaric were still alive with their ambitions. Without the able general of Theodosius, things took a rather devastating turn for the Romans, which must be excluded from this video as it does not affect the state of Britain. What affected Britain actually was the fact that when Constantine went to Gaul, he took whatever defense was left to Britain, just like his predecessors. And now, while Constantine was fighting for his ambitions, Britain was completely defenseless against the raids of Picts, Scotti and Saxons. This forced Britons to defend themselves without Roman military. Mark Morris has put it remarkably well in the book The Anglo Saxons, a history of the beginnings of England, as self-defense was synonymous with self-rule. It was the time for the Britons to undo the Roman Empire and held the self-rule. The independence of Britain, rather than from Britain, was soon confirmed by Honorius in about the year 410, as his army was occupied in fight against the rising usurpers.